one decision maker here, maybe you could catch him.
No, I fully agree for two reasons. One, many times, this is my personal experience with due respect to all of you who are in this field of technology. We found many people who come and offer solutions based on one model that they have. There is the same example which they show. And if you sign up with them, you say that we need 3 months to get back to you with the rest of the content. So most of them are trying out. They say, okay, if the school accepts it, then based on the money that I'll get from there, I will do the payment. What happens is for a school, it becomes very difficult. Then what happens? You have got that, suddenly you tie up $1 billion, something in the US, the guy is missing, you have someone else coming. You have technology companies where in 4 meetings you have 5 different people coming and meeting you. It's again very difficult for the school to be very careful about it. EduCom companies like them are different. You at least have a head office or a listed company so you can call up. For a new startup, when you go to the school, it's extremely difficult, and please understand if you were on the other side, it would be the same. Somebody would start something, sir, fee management solution, I'll give you this, I'll give you that report. You ask for it. Before saying, he's saying yes to it. And when you start with it, from the very first day, you don't even have the receipts printing properly. That's the sad part. So to see a technology, this one, and most importantly, you don't have, then you are stuck with him. All your emails, your email IDs, your parents' contacts, everything is with them. And then you can't get it back. And then your parents calling about, how did you share our number with this one? We don't want so and so to call. It's a very difficult proposition for the school. So please understand, it's not that many of them genuinely don't want to meet or don't want to try. There has to be a certain amount of genuine, and like I say, some black sheep, they probably, so once bitten, twice shy, no, this becomes 10 times shy. That is the only reason.
Yeah, please go ahead.
There's a useful metaphor here that I find for understanding the space. In the medical business, or rather pharmaceutical business, you have prescription medication and you have over-the-counter medication. To me, the difference between B2B and B2C is very similar. The prescription medication is like B2B, over-the-counter medication is like B2C. When you try to develop a solution, the same sort of, the kind of thing that you're doing for B2B is not the same as the kind of technology or solution developed for B2C. These are two completely different kinds of solutions. Okay? So you have to decide, am I addressing this space or that space? If it's that, this thing is not going to work there, very well there, and vice versa. Okay? The other thing is, when you do B2B, when you're selling to schools, for instance, for something that's going to be used in a school, you have to develop a solution which is going to be quite stable. You're not going to change anything from year to year. Okay? The changes are going to be introduced gradually. If you do something that's B2C, you can change things very rapidly. It's not institutional. So these are very different kinds of products that you're developing for two very different markets.
My name is Vijay. I have a venture named Career Slam, where we do career planner for high school kids. Question to Captain as well as Anand, because you're talking about schools and the difficulty there. The reason you're running the show at the school and you're selling or you're pushing technology, is there any, how do you measure the outcome? As one of the gentlemen, he was talking about marks and everything. When my daughter's school, they say they tied up with somebody, there's a smart class running and things like that, and I asked her, they said no, they played something, and today this was like a show, it's becoming like a TV now. The question is, initially it starts with fun-based learning, B2C, there's a million things going on, right? How is there any follow-up to say, because at the end of the day it looks like the framework used in India is, what is your score in 10th standard, right? How much did you score in science, math, whatever? Or like the other gentleman, science had and things. How do you now know it worked or not? At all? I mean, from a school perspective or statistically, let's say 3,000 students of 10th standard, let's say, graduated this year from a school X, which had technology pushed. How do you know this worked or not? I mean, from school perspective.
Nobody can know. That is why we are all in business.
That's a lie.
And also it's a global.
You can keep selling the same thing over and over again because you have a new customer every time.
And India is a huge market.
So can I get a word, Edgeways? I know Swami Manohar, so I know he can kid on that, but it's actually a serious issue. right? The issue that I face when I go out, and then the reason I got into Science Ed as an example, is that somewhere there seems to be a relationship being drawn to my ability to articulate an idea versus knowing what the definition means, right? So what we are starting to test is a definition of what something means. And it's as easy as putting into a Google, getting the definition, mugging it up and putting it up. Now, if that gets equated to knowledge, then mind you, we are in serious trouble. And that's the piece I think some of us are trying to address. How do you create inherent learning mechanism where I do not want prepackaged ready meals to be served. I want it 95%, they have to do the 5% completion because that gives an ownership to the learning process that you have to bring into the process, right? I think that's a piece that you need to kind of figure out, and how do you judge that? Because asking somebody to repeat something that they have learned as a definition or putting a formula or doing an equation, I don't believe is going to get you that result.
I'll just add to what you said. This is an example again I give parents when they come and meet us and ask what does your school offer. All of us I think have gone through dictations in class, in school. And even today we follow up dictations of our students, of our children. What do you give? The teacher will give you 20 words and say I will have a test on Monday. The first question you as a parent ask is how much did you get? You got 90, why did you make that mistake? Now, both from the teacher's side and as a parent, I think what we need to worry is not that mistake. Today on the right click of a mouse, you will get the spelling. There is nothing in it. In the same thing, if a teacher can, on every Monday, have that every student should give out one new word. With 35 children in the class, you have 35 words and you can imagine how many words, how well the child's vocabulary will learn. The dictation is what the British started. If you will go back to the history of formal education, which today in India was brought in by Lord Macaulay, it was brought in with the intent to create people who would do things the way they were told to. And I think we are brilliant at that. We do it very well. I would like to address what you said, sir, is about how do you change their imagination. I 100% agree. Marks are not everything. They are the only thing. You have absolutely no choice. You have absolutely no choice on it. But which marks? Is it your 100 on 100 which you get from kindergarten to 9th standard? It is only your 10th standard marks. It's only your 12th standard marks. If you will go back to your education and go through it, you will see that 80 to 90% of the concepts are taught in middle school. And that is where a school needs to focus on. If at that, the difficult part is how do the conventional schools handle it, I cannot say that. But today with the new generation schools, if you focus on getting children to understand the concept, if I have understood what friction is, then for me to by heart that everybody continues in its state of rest or uniform motion unless an external force is acting on it, not difficult to by heart. But should I do it from kindergarten? Not required. So if the schools and the parents are not worried, please do not ask the children how much marks will you get, what did your neighbor's child get, don't worry about it. But when you have a conversation with your child, if you can check up as to what the child has understood and build on their foundation in the middle school, yes, there is no choice till the time people don't want to get into IITs and say all engineering colleges are the same, or I will do an AMI and still become an engineer and get a job because if I'm good at it, no one can stop me. Otherwise, there is no choice to marks. But surely there is an option to learning, but that has to be done in the junior classes. We are even worried about things in kindergarten. Parents are, how much my child is not writing cursive. I don't think by the children who are in kindergarten, by the time they grow up, will there be trees to cut to make paper. It's really a difficult proposition which is there. So there is nothing we cannot change the system. We can go around it. There are some schools who are trying to do that. Parents have to become more understanding. And that is how this whole game, that's why I said we are on a verge where there is, everyone's realizing there is a need to change the way people learn. But are you ready to take the chance? You will still stand in line outside National Public School at 4 o'clock in the morning for the admission form. For 1 year. So that's a different thing. But is that the only education that you want? No. So now you have to understand as a parent, what is it that you want to give as a child? And hence, all these options which are available can be given in school at times Why do children go for tuitions? Like I told you, there are a lot of kids who are today not going and are doing things which are other things as career. But even they will come back to write the 10th and 12th exam. Even because they're not sure whether they'll become the next Jeev Milkha Singh.
I see a real hope now that the admission cutoff is 100%.
Yeah,
Everybody's going to give up. And just going to prefer the long run.
exactly. I fully agree.
So I have a more controversial agenda to add. So all of us got here and we seem to be doing reasonably well. We came through this system, right, most of us. And right, so nature by itself is, it's about natural selection to some extent, and based on the, circumstances that you're in, you tend to adapt. Now, what we're talking about, I mean, all of us talking about, is saying that let's go change the basic circumstances around which people tend to learn. My point is, while we might sit here and say that hey, we should change everything, I can tell you, and I live in Delhi, okay, so doesn't mean that I'm very literate about the way the government works, but I spend a lot of time speaking to bureaucrats. And for this, first you need to understand how a bureaucrat looks at life, then you can, all of us can sit. First ask how many bureaucrats are there.
And are they human?
No, sorry. So here's a bureaucrat who went through pretty much his IS selection process, and he's now become Secretary HRD or Joint Secretary HRD. Typically Joint Secretary HRD, very influential people. He comes from a completely socialist background, which is if there is something radically brilliant happening, first even it. That means if you think, don't allow anything brilliant to happen around, because I mean for him, he says, hey, imagine I have 50 brilliant kids and I have like 500 or let's say 5,000 average kids in the school. How can I let that continue? I mean, I can't let that happen, right? So I need to bring the 50 down because I can't bring the 5,000 up. So therefore, every policy that will be made and will continue to be made, or all of us middle class can sit and moan about it, will be made with the basic objective that it has to even out for somebody else so that they can also try and survive. In this, all the people who do well and who do exceedingly well will get ahead. People who work hard will also get ahead, and the people who sit around will struggle. And I'll give you another good example. And this is again a very Delhi example. Sorry, I'm a South Indian who lives in Delhi, but there was a time when they carved up Delhi's roads. They said, okay, boss, now we're going to build this bus road rapid transport system. I don't know if you guys all heard about it in Bangalore. So all the arterial roadways of Delhi were blocked out to us souls who used to pay tax and drive cars. And they said, now we're going to dedicate 5-6 lanes right in the middle of the city, right through the heart of the city for buses. And all of us sat there and said, I mean, Sheila Dikshit is going to get herself whipped, right? I mean, how can she win an election after taking on the whole city? She won a landslide. The chappies who travel in the bus who go to vote. People like me go on vacation as soon as there's election time, right? And we go in cars. There was one of us in a car with 100 guys in a bus. They loved it. They all went and voted, and she came back for power the third time. RTE is exactly that. So while we might sit and argue saying that, hey, let's change that, RTE is about equaling it. Yeah, today my driver is damn happy. My son is going to the same school that your son is going to. I'm very happy about it too. I'm like, but guys, it's important to them. Please understand. Yeah, there's a strata of society that we tend to not look at because that's the way we live life, and those people really want to be us, and we want to be something else. So that's a different problem. But but the thing is, unless we start including it, that's where I have a problem, because I think education in India is about inclusion. It is not about just making money and putting technology and all of that. All that's great. I mean, it's all going to happen. It's always happening. My kids used phones and your kids will use them. But if you don't include, and the more you include, the more value will come out of the system.
It's the bottom of the pyramid that you are.
I think it's about the fact that we have to understand that there is a larger India outside of all of us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That India is not in Bangalore, not in Delhi. It's in the heart of UP. I remember, I'm sorry, the major discussion. I've been part of programs where we're trying to teach UP school children. I don't know if you read the Asar reports, right? All of you have read it, right? For some 5th standard kid doesn't know counting, doesn't know. So, and I've gone into UP school and we tried to teach these kids. So we put a lot of technology. What technology? We put content in the classroom and kept repeating it. So we said, this might be the best way to teach. No. Why? Because over there, a teacher gets into school, there's one teacher who lands up and she teaches second, or he teaches, sorry, second, he's right. He teaches second, third, fourth, fifth together. Everybody in the same room. So how much the kid will learn in that situation? So while we can, think about the fact that we need to put technology, we need to do all this, we're going to look at $1 million opportunity or $1 million opportunity, there is a part of India which also wants, they want to be part of us.
So the billion is the $1 billion opportunity. So I have a question to Raja before can I just take one question? So Raja, from your analysis, from the trends that's around in the market today, is there a trend towards funds chasing a specific technology or a specific direction in the education vertical?
No, I think, as he said, I think obviously everybody has talked about that, one is education, one is learning, which if I may use an anecdote, the world's biggest investor, Warren Buffett, he actually said the best investment that you can make is invest in your children. He's obviously, everybody's made loads of money. So I guess, what I think we've been discussing is very relevant in terms of education, learning and making money. And I think one of the things everybody is grappling with is exactly some things that we're talking about is education meant to be only a money-making machine? And I think, that's a challenge and a debate that happens in every discussion, because from an entrepreneur perspective, if you're in the education system, you would say that it is, you can't scale it up and just prototype and just keep on growing, because the needs of the consumer is different, and the investor will say that it's my money, so I need to make returns. So I think we are in that flux, and maybe some of the things will get evolved as we talk, because some of the financial inclusions that we talked about, we've seen certain sectors like microfinance, etc., obviously coming up. But I think the couple of things which are clearly, to answer your question, which is clearly relevant for the investor's mind, which are fast growing. I think clearly the preschool, we've seen a massive amount of preschool mushrooming up, a lot of funds being kind of deployed in that segment. Looks to be a very easy segment to go for. So that's one segment we've seen a lot of interest. I think the other segment where we are seeing clearly a lot of money being going is the higher education segment. Clearly there are larger corporate groups of India which have actually focused strategy around that. I can't name them at this point of time, but they're obviously looking at very, very significantly rapid change, inclusions, but clearly building a business model. There are obviously larger groups who are focusing on that segment. I think the third is the ancillary segment. In fact, I was speaking to a company which actually does, these were a group of people who were very successful running a large BPO outfit which got sold. They made massive loads of money, and they're currently actually doing into sports. So their focus is actually on sports education, and they're actually funded by HDFC and things like that, because their fundamental thesis is that, as Captain was talking about, is on personality. We're all focused on the maths and the numbers, but nobody's really talking about sports and personality. So their focus is on that. And when I was actually looking at that segment, I actually found close to 20 companies in India who are actually focused on that. A couple of them in Bangalore. So that's a segment which is attracting interest a lot. And I think the third and the last I would say is unfortunately, if I were to say that, the entire scalable technology fold, which is your Akash tablets or your iPads, the content, I think keeps on growing. I'm not debating in terms of the other facets, whether it is really, really adding value to the society and etc. But I think that's some segment which is growing. My personal view, some radical themes and changes are already happening, and I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg, because you will get funding in those kind of segments, and I think as I think everybody's talking about, we also need some disruptive technology to change the way we are seeing. So yeah, means and hopefully you need money. of course, you need money to also bring your ideas into action. And I think maybe education is a sector where you need to balance it out in terms of how much money you can make, how much time you need to take, and maybe investors are also learning as we talk in the process.
But a good question. Is there a difference in emphasis with vis-a-vis hardware, software, services, some combination thereof, in terms of where the money is going?
See, and I'm just taking a step back here. Unfortunately, what is not happening right, I think people are just chasing numbers at the moment. So while the emphasis is on the content to change, but what is happening is you start to bundle a lot of hardware in that. Now, I'm not, the problem I think what I see is, and I've looked at a lot of companies, is that they're still very, very attracted by the numbers, because you're not going to get a lot of big numbers by selling software and content. So you need to push in a lot of hardware. But I think the smart investor sees through that and will not fund hardware, plain vanilla pass-through hardware selling, because it's not much of value. But I think content, who are building good content, trying to change, investors are very, very hungrily looking at those kind of situations. So software is still the king, unfortunately.
Is there a trend towards the ticket size today? And that's one question. And second question is, and I'm sure many entrepreneurs out here are looking for angel. Is there a sizable angel available in India today?
The answer is yes. The answer is yes. And in fact, if I were to say, the most successful private equity investor from India, some of you may know, some of you have not heard of him. His name is Ashish Dhawan. He was the founder of Chris Capital, which has made multi-bagger returns. He was actually the first investor in Bharti, along with Warburg, and several kind of companies, multi-bagger returns he has given. At the age of 42, 43, he's actually retired, and he said, I've made enough money. But he's passionately chasing education on his personal capacity, and he's in some of these committees and stuff like that. But I know that he himself runs a family office where he is going to put in money in these kind of initiatives, where it may not necessarily, as somebody said, have the returns, etc. So I actually see a fair amount of angels there in the market. From the city, Mr. Premji is well known. He's very, very active in this entire area. And there are a lot of very well-known entrepreneurs who've made a lot of money, but they're actually passionately chasing opportunities. So there is money available, and if the idea is good, I think that's an opportunity to be tapped for budding entrepreneurs.
Karthik, I can comment on some of the numbers. And just as a background for those who don't know, I am working pro bono with something called India Inclusive Innovation Fund. This is being set up. So we did an analysis, which it's a fund is not announced. It's going to get announced under MSME. I'm also part of Indian Angel Network, something called a social fund. So just the numbers, just to get you guys on the thing. We did a study in the last 1 year with the kind of deals that are coming in the inclusive social sector, right? And this is across sectors, across stages of institutions. We did about 380 deals were what we could find that came up ready for sourcing in the last 1 year. When I say 1 year, it stopped in March 31st kind of stuff, right? So last fiscal. And out of the 380 odd deals, healthcare took the biggest one with about 27%, and education with 24 was by far the two largest. And outside of that, things like energy, clean water, etc., are single-digit numbers, right? The other one that is kind of relevant into what he spoke about is that roughly about 70+% of across all of what we saw was pre-revenue, which meant that they are at an angel or a seed level. There's only about 17% that was some kind of revenue, and the rest were growth capital, right? So, not saying that this is an extensive piece, but I think one of the things that we found was that there was really no data to rely on, and you had to go and create some of this or to figure out how things were moving. So that's the split. Roughly about 400 deals that came up. But it doesn't include Rajiv's fund tote. I looked for it, but that's not considered social inclusive. But yeah, that's the structure that you would see. And what is good to see in that number is, as I said, healthcare is 27%, 24% was, but more than half of it was covered by these two sectors.
That's very reassuring.
Sorry?
What was the average size of investment?
No, these are deal flows coming in. None of them, I mean, some of them were going in for growth, which was like a example is something like a tree house, which is he mentioned, one of you mentioned tree house. It's funded. Well, there are people, Amidya has funded that, ON as part of that network. So that would have come up on a late stage, but this is deal flow that is coming in.
So that's very reassuring. I think there was a question.
So one question, I'm Lata, I represent Chippers. Since some of you are educationists and some of you actually sell to institutions, one question. We not only sell educational products, but we also do teacher training. And the one challenge that we actually face is how do you actually infuse a teacher to adopt the new practices that they have actually learned in a teacher training in a classroom? Because finally the difference is the teacher. Whatever education, whatever technology that you give, whatever content that you give, the final person who actually makes a difference is the teacher. So how, in your experiences, what has been something good that we can probably take back to our training sessions?
Kill their fear.
Do you want to?
Yeah, we've done it for a long time, so we can add. Basically, you want to be working close with them, train them again and again. Most of them are afraid of using technology. They're afraid of systems. So, and lastly, I think we should also pay our teachers better. I mean, honestly, much better off. Than they are.
I have one housekeeping announcement. I think, I don't know if we announced earlier, there's dinner after this session. So the question is, do we, where do we stop? Do we continue? Do we go further? Is 20 minutes more okay? So we can network post the session. During dinner also we can connect with people and continue the discussions out there. So do we stop after 20-30 minutes? Is that okay? Generally? Okay, so around 8:30, 8:35 we conclude. So yeah.
I'll just take that one. I like the idea of what Anand said. I fully agree. We must pay our teachers better. But with RT coming in, regulation of fees, I don't know where the money is going to come from. Private schools are not funded. There is no aid coming. So unless, like I said, if you want to eat Sona Masuri, you have to pay for it. You can't get the Sona Masuri at the price of what you get at the BPL. So that about while it's most important and the reason you get a lot of teachers, I've seen it myself, a lot of them who come because of passion. That's luckily in the cities. A lot of you hear your wives who are well qualified don't want to take up the job because they've got a kid coming. They are excellent initiatives for good teachers. They are not coming in for the money. If you have a great work culture, they would love to come to the school. They surely are not running for money. I've seen it in my last 15 years. I've met enough of them. So that is not the thing. What you mentioned about using technology teacher training, typically with due respect, personally I have no regard for B.Ed. I think that's an archaic computer which I think no longer should exist. They need to do something they've not done. The way you get a B.Ed degree is just to apply for government jobs, otherwise, or because the CBSE or this one asks for it. It does not test your passion on it. Teachers in conventional schools are scared of taking up new initiatives because one, lack of time. There is a tremendous amount, there is a sword hanging on them, so and so chapters need to be finished by so and so time, these many questions need to be done, these many tests. Where will the teacher do anything to do different? If you take the new age schools, who are not, that is why I don't know how many of you are aware, about 6-7 years back there were about 10 to 15 international schools. In Bangalore, as of today, we are touching number almost 100 plus. The only reason is it gives you more freedom to try it. Exactly, a teacher can become good. You can train a person to do better if they have the freedom to try it. If you are born by saying, no, I need this textbook to be completed, I personally don't think you need to learn 20 chapters and 15 poems to understand English. You can teach it even using a newspaper. But the board wants you to teach that particular book, do that particular workbook. So what does a poor teacher do? She is forced by it. So it's nothing to do with it. It depends on how much of freedom the school is ready to give the teacher to try new initiatives. Nothing else. The new initiatives which are coming in as teacher training, Why even among the teachers, if in every school you were to give them the freedom and get them to interact with each other at the end of every month or so and see what worked, what didn't work is a great training process.
Yeah.
Right. Couple of things. If we are looking at non-coercive methods, voluntary methods of getting people to use, one is if you're an experienced teacher, you're already established, you're comfortable with a certain process. So unless there's a problem that you experience, there's really no reason for you to try to adopt something new. Why? Things are working fine, your kids are learning. So a couple of things. One, you may have a few pain points. And if you can highlight certain pain points and they recognize, hey, this can do something that I'm looking for, rather than having them adopt everything, this solves one. You need an entry point. Okay, the entry point has to be something that's significant. I've been experiencing this for a while. I need to know backgrounds of students. I need to communicate with them, whatever. I need to send them something that I forgot to send them. That becomes your entry point to there. You're changing the behaviors, basically, number one. The second thing to bear in mind is that there will always be a variation in enthusiasm. There'll be some that want to try out everything, something that's new, others who don't want to try out. Now, teachers trust each other better than a vendor or an administrator or somebody else. So you use teachers as means of transmitting these ideas to other teachers. If I'm somebody, I've adopted it, I become the evangelist for the method or technology. So if you create a network, suppose you have an online network, a newsletter, show them little things that they accomplished, not an entire technology or process. I was able to do this in this class. I was able to do that. Stories, lots of stories. That gives you ideas. If you have 200 different stories of 200 different ways in it was used, there's a chance that there's something out there that catches my attention. And then you take it from there.
I just want to add a note there, since we work in the same space, and that too largely with teachers at the bottom of the pyramid in India and Africa. And the biggest surprise for us was when we went to find out what motivated a teacher most in her daily life. It was actually the daily life becoming more interesting. The second on the list was actually pay. And if you Google, those of you who have smartphones, you can try it out even right now. If you Google for making teaching fun, you actually won't find any relevant results in the first 1, 2 or 3 pages. Making learning fun, whole bunch of people are doing it. And like Murli said, what you're talking about is how do we inculcate a new behavior in teachers. And be it in education or outside, making the new behavior fun is the most powerful method that we know to make it adoptable by the teachers. And that's, I think, one of the first starting steps. How do you make new good teaching practices more fun in everyday classroom? The second aspect is which someone was addressing in terms of availability of new devices, be it mobile phones or tablets. Now, critical thing that a lot of principals told us is when they send teachers to teacher training workshops, they usually go there, come back, 1 week, 2 week maximum motivation lasts, then they go back to their normal practice. Which is, especially when a new behavior changes involved, there's a need for constant everyday mentoring. And that can actually happen today because of the availability of smartphones or tablets. So that's actually some of the findings that led us to create a tablet or a smartphone based in-class companion to a teacher so that they don't have to even spend time outside a classroom. That makes good teaching practices fun when they are teaching. So just wanted to add a note since that's exactly the space where we work.
Manipal for 6 years, and I've seen Educom, Manipal, everybody trying to do something new in the last 6 years. I think Educom has done with the raffles bit on the higher education, and Manipal has tried doing a lot of things new, but nothing significantly successful. Just about beating the same old distance education and the campus education. With all the big brand name also, they couldn't do much. So is it like higher education is a no-go for India? Nobody even asks a single question regarding
that. That would be a whole debate here. Because this was K-12 focused.
Is it K-12? That's school education, or is it SIG?
Yeah, so we do, as I said initially, that there are 3 verticals internally. One is K to 12, second is higher education, and third is the alternative education. The focus was more K to 12, and if you look at the panel also, they're more focused towards K to 12. We did have a Now, okay, so we did have one last year. last year we did have one higher education panel, but this is one very interesting question. I mean, I would like to check with the audience, what do you think we should focus on in the next event? We're perhaps planning, so let me introduce the other core team members of the education vertical. We have Mohan. Mohan is a serial entrepreneur, runs Learn Hive. We have Geeta Ramamurthy, who is currently based out of Boston, but she's running a vocational institute. Rajiv used to be there with the core team, and he's, I think, focusing more, still there. So if there are suggestions, we can actually fine tune it for the next event. Any suggestions? So we could look at K-12, we could look at higher education, alternate, content, whatever you, yeah, any of you.
Just a quick one. Is it possible to do it for rural education? Because that's where the bulk of the population lies, right? And if I'm sure there's a distinct difference between what you can cater to in an urban setting from what you can do in a rural setting, and there's a whole slew of technologies and so on and so forth that we need to address in that regard. So maybe that's one possibility I'm thinking of. Great idea.
Yeah,
My
excellent.
only suggestion is from a investor or a profit standpoint, I don't think it will hold over the water. But it's from a corporate social responsibility, it's a great idea and it's a great need. But will it bring in the money? Will people be ready to stay with it? Is something which
I think actually,
I'd like to ask that question. Will it bring the money
actually
forward?
a different view there. This is, as I said, there are, set of investors who are very focused on returns. And as I said, there are angels, there are high net worth individuals whose objectives are different. So I think the challenge that we face is we don't get those kind of individuals or companies who are really focusing and taking it forward. So I think the biggest challenge we face, at least in India, at least I see, is it's all me too, is again opening a play school and you have 10 play schools across the street. And I think what it does, it actually kills the business model and it actually impacts the consumer as well. So I think there are people who definitely would love to look at those kind of opportunities.
Because Ashish's projects around that area.
Yeah. So in fact,
So again, statistics based, just to break a bit of a myth, statistics. We filed part of something called Sikshana. We do about 780 schools, rural primary schools, and we file a whole lot of RTE, not RTE, just a whole lot of RTI information piece to figure out what gets spent across on a per child basis. Okay, and this is important for you to know. It's a myth that we don't spend enough. I'll come back to what it is. In Karnataka, if I take, because I have the latest figures for Karnataka as of last year. In Karnataka, the central allocation per child in a public education is about 7,200 rupees. And the Karnataka quota for it, or what Karnataka adds to that, is another 4,000. So roughly about 11,000 rupees is being spent per child up to the standard 7, up to standard 6.
Is it allocation?
No, sorry. So, sorry. This is an RTI, so it's not allocation, sir. RTI piece where they have spent. Now, we can sit here and argue whether it was spent in the right way, it was spent wrongly, or was it, not spent. No, but this was spent. This is not allocation. So the only thing. Correct. So only thing that I want to make as a point is that it's not a question of, when we talk about grandstanding statement to say that this is not happening, I don't know how much of our statements get based on data. The data is that as a country in Karnataka we are spending about 11,000 rupees per child.
That's what on RTE they reimburse the schools on it.
Yeah,
But
correct.
I'm sure anyone who has an experience in that will understand to get that 11,000 how much money would you have to pay to get that 11,000 back. That's a different issue, I will not get into that. But surely what you said is true, 11,000 is the amount of money which is allocated, and obviously whatever is it, I think there is enough allocation for roads. Have you seen the roads? So it's exactly the same.
No, I just wanted to make a point that, there are two distinct pieces when you talk about rural and you need to think about in detail. There is one piece which is affordability, we can talk and discuss, and there are places like the social entrepreneurs coming in and working through. But it's the other piece which is kind of not looked at, which is availability, right? So there are actually two very distinct pieces as when you compare affordability and availability, and that's something that needs to be taken into context.
Yeah, the only thing is, I think the way go ahead in rural would surely not be from the allotment which would come from there, but from what he says, because Azim Premji Foundation is a great example of it. I think whatever they are doing it, and he's done the most sensible thing of rather than give money, put some shares which will make money, so continuously there's a cash flow coming in, and you need to have people who will be ready to not worry about returns at all and say that, okay, this is my contribution to education, and a fund like that which would be used, and again, I think people who use it should be socially and morally thinking of using it in that fashion. It's extremely essential. It's a value system which will come into play. Today, even if you want to work, and I'm a volunteer to work in government schools and get them, they will not allow you to go near. For the simple reason, one, you will get to know what's happening, and second, they feel that they know education best.
So I got one feedback. We need to have rural education.
So just
Karthik?
I just want to add to
about the higher education. I think you talked about the higher education and the companies interested in it, and I think that was your second in the list where the next money is coming in. But in the higher education, can you specify, is it something that business as usual higher education like engineer, or are you talking of skill development? Because it's something which we can relate in, the skill development, which we keep hearing there's a lot of skill gap. Almost 50% in India, there's a corporate requirement, and what the education produces is a skill gap. So is that an area which we're managing?
What I would suggest in that case is we'll take this up offline. We'll possibly go for dinner and we'll take that offline. Raja, if you could just
I was talking about the next
event. Yes, sure. That's all. So I have a suggestion. All of you, if you can just register on Google Groups. I'll repeat that. TiE-Bangalore. Let me read it once again. I know, but then it was ages back. So TiE-Bangalore-education-SIG. I'll repeat it. TiE-Bangalore-education-SIG. Yeah. So I'll reduce it next time at Google Docs. If you could just send in a mail, it will be really nice if, and we'll know what to expect.
Yeah. Quickly to add, I think one of the entire discussion could have had a new dimension if we had some users as well. That would definitely bring in a much better flavor into what we are talking and what.
I was surprised. We're talking of technology in education. And right in the beginning, I said that please post your questions using the hashtag TiEBLR-education. I didn't get one tweet.
the network's pathetic. I had a suggestion on this one. Look, I've worked with universities outside of India. I focus on the K-12 segment outside of India. And the trade replicates. I mean, about 20 to 25% of government funding is on education, number 2 after health, in the first world in developed countries. Can we talk a little about that in the next section?
Government funding?
Government funding.
Okay.
And this is only for K-12 and primary.
Okay.
Higher education is going through a completely different set of challenges and transformation.
Yeah, interesting.
Area education where a lot of courses are kind of. Teachers are empowered, it's outside the school, it's B2C, it's sort of self-paced, there's definitely money in it, tuitions. And no one talks about it when we talk about K-12, it's like the T word, you don't talk about tuitions, I talk about T word. But is that a space that people should be looking at?
So I'll do this. I'll possibly, so Anjali, when we circulate, we'll possibly circulate our Google group ID and the hashtag. And some of these ideas will circulate. So it will be great if in case you can send in your requests, suggestions, etc. So I think we should wind up. Otherwise, in a hungry stomach, we won't be able to speak. Yeah.
I have a question. Everyone is talking about the education system is screwed up and there should be some transition to it and someone should change over it. But a lot of startups which are coming up, they are actually based on the existing model, right? The basic problem which is there is the students are still not able to make the decision. At the 10th standard, they have to choose a stream to actually go for the future. They're still not able to make the decision. And is there any way we should bring that. Is there a requirement actually to bring that? Does school actually?
We're trying.
Actually, I want to say this, but we do
Yeah.
exactly that.
Let me tell you how lucky you are. In South Korea, they have a test.
In November, it's one test, one day. The whole country sits for this test, and based on a rank, everybody gets to decide which career they're going to get. You do well in the test, you go to LG, Samsung. You do a little bad, you go to some average company, and if you really do badly, you go nowhere. And that is forever. And this is genuinely what happens in South Korea every year. So we're lucky here. I mean, we're still better than them. Yeah.
In India, what we do is in school system, they actually put a limit. Okay, 90% goes to non-medical or medical, 80%.
Yeah, true.
But the system is still capable actually holding the people who really want to become an engineer, and if they are 60% also, they can choose an open system also.
Yeah.
But instead of actually grieving about what the system is, and instead of making children actually able to make a decision, that will be much better if we can actually use our technology to make the decision.
Actually, such a thing is what they are stealing our. So
thank you very much.
Don't say that loudly.
Thank you very much. On behalf of TiE, I need to thank all the panelists for taking out time for the event. Anand for taking out time to fly down all the way from Delhi. Thank you, Dr. Murli. Thank you, Amrit. Thank you, Captain. And thanks. They come from Chennai. Sure. Yes. Bombay. Yes. Thank you. Thank you all of you for dropping by. Dinners upstairs. One more.